There are places so mysterious that they make us question everything we think we know. We've talked about them several times in the videos on our channel, but what we're going to discuss today will not only leave you speechless, but also make you doubt the entire historical reconstruction of our origin. Today, we are going to Tiahuanaco, a desert plateau in the Bolivian Andes. Here, we will explore an extraordinary and mysterious architectural complex that continues to puzzle researchers to this day. Could this enigmatic place be evidence of an ancient and advanced lost civilization? We believe so, and we are sure that by the end of this story, you will share our opinion. As always, before embarking on this fascinating journey, we invite you to subscribe to the channel and share our videos to support our work. In a remote corner of the Earth, at an altitude of 3,600 meters on a Bolivian Andes plateau, we find astonishing structures of polished stone characterized by precise cuts, right angles, and joints crafted with exceptional skill. We are talking about Tiahuanaco, particularly Puma Punku, one of the most imposing monolithic complexes on the planet. Most of the structures we see today lie in ruins. While this might seem like a natural consequence of time, in this case, there appears to be more to the story. We will return to this later in the video. For now, to understand all the unusual and mysterious aspects of this enormous archaeological site, we need to start from the beginning. Tiahuanaco is an ancient archaeological site in Bolivia, near the southeast shore of Lake Titicaca. According to the official historical account, the Tiahuanaco civilization flourished between 500 and 1000 AD, although some evidence suggests that its origins might date back to 1500 BC. This site is renowned for being one of the most important ceremonial centers of the pre-Inca civilization and represents one of the most significant cultures of pre-Columbian America. In 1200 AD, the Tiahuanaco civilization mysteriously disappeared from the area. Most archaeologists agree that this was due to drastic climate changes. Tiahuanaco later became the foundation of Inca beliefs, who inhabited the region in the centuries that followed. At the beginning of the 20th century, Austrian engineer Arthur Posnansky dedicated many years of his research to the ruins of Tiahuanaco. Posnansky focused on a specific area of this vast region, where he noticed that some stones were curiously arranged vertically. This was the first clue that led the engineer to imagine that thousands of years earlier, an astronomical observatory stood there. Posnansky's discovery attracted many other scholars to the region, who discovered another mysterious and ancient archaeological site, Puma Punku, not far from where the engineer had identified. In Aymara, Puma Punku means the Gate of the Puma. No one knows who designed and built this complex of sophisticated monolithic blocks. Researchers have long investigated the ruins, but have not reached any conclusive answers. In fact, the more the site is studied, the more theories emerge that push the limits of our knowledge. The monoliths of Puma Punku are made of granite and diorite. Diorite is an extremely hard rock, so hard that today we use diamond-tipped drills to work it. However, this did not seem to concern the ancient builders, who shaped the rock with incredible precision. We can observe perfect right angles, incredibly smooth surfaces, and circular shapes that seem to have been made with the modern tools we have today. Imagining that all this was done with primitive tools remains an inexplicable enigma. But the mysteries surrounding these incredible structures are numerous, starting with the quarries from which the rock was extracted, located about 60 kilometers away. How these enormous and heavy stones were transported to Puma Punku remains unclear. This is just the beginning of the oddities. Another peculiar aspect emerges when observing the construction system. The stones feature a sophisticated joining mechanism. Between two adjacent stones, indentations were made to accommodate a metal insert that helped stabilize the stones. The procedure involved joining the stones, carving them to create a mold, and finally pouring molten metal, which solidified to lock the stones together. This technique was also used by other ancient cultures, such as the Egyptians, who used a similar method to reinforce their structures. Analyses of the metals used for these joints revealed that they were made from a special copper alloy containing arsenic, iron, silicon, and nickel. This is a mystery since nickel is not found in Bolivia. Additionally, traces of platinum and aluminum were detected in the fastenings. We know that platinum melts at a very high temperature, about 1800 degrees Celsius, making it not only a valuable material today, but also ideal for industrial processes. Aluminum, on the other hand, was officially discovered only in the 1800s. Whoever erected these monuments not only knew about metal alloys that we would discover centuries later, but was also capable of creating a high-level foundry, all in a hostile environment lacking even firewood. So, we must ask, when was Puma Punku built? As mentioned earlier, Poznański discovered that the builders of Tiahuanaco had created a gigantic astronomical observatory aligned with the sun and the stars. According to his calculations, on the first day of winter or summer, the sun would rise at the corners of the temple, corresponding to the pillars, while on the first day of spring, the sun would rise at the center of the gate. Today, this is not accurate, because everything appears slightly misaligned unless we backdate the construction by many years compared to the official estimates, specifically to 15,000 years ago. At that time, the Earth's axis had a different tilt, and if we consider this, everything aligns perfectly. Orthodox archaeologists, however, do not consider this misalignment significant. They believe it is simply the result of a construction error, but this solution seems a bit hasty, especially when we observe a particular image depicted on the sun gate. Here, we see an unusual animal that appears to have a trunk. This image can represent only two things: either an elephant, an animal not present in South America but in Africa, raising questions about how this primitive people knew of it, or it could represent a Cuvieronius, a type of prehistoric elephant that lived in Latin America but went extinct 12,000 years ago. However, according to official archaeology, the complex dates back to 500 AD, or at most 1500 BC. This estimate was reached through carbon-14 analysis of some organic remains found at the site. But this dating is questioned by those who believe the site is much older, arguing that finding organic elements from that period does not mean much, as the site was colonized by various civilizations over time. There are conflicting opinions on the dating of the archaeological complex, and as we know, we cannot date stone to determine the exact moment the monoliths were erected. However, we can try another method to understand the origin of these incredible artifacts, perhaps less orthodox. We can ask the local populations what they know about these structures. The first to ponder this mystery were the Spanish explorers of the 16th and 17th centuries. Astonished by the structures before them, they asked the locals who had built these edifices. The locals responded that it was not their work, nor their fathers, but rather the work of the gods. Specifically, the testimonies attributed the site to Viracocha, the creator god, who is said to have created the ancestral people from whom all races descend. Viracocha is one of the most important and revered deities in pre-Inca culture, considered the creator of the heavens and the earth. It is said that he arrived one day from the ocean aboard a ship without oars. Another remarkable feature of Viracocha is his depiction as an elderly man with a beard, an unusual trait for the deities of Native American cultures, as the indigenous people of South America do not grow beards. This characteristic appears more European than South American. Some have speculated that the depiction of Viracocha was influenced by the arrival of the Spanish. However, when we examine some statues attributed to the deity, which can also be found at Puma Punku, we notice they seem to have beards. This contradicts the hypothesis since these statues were created long before Europeans arrived in the Americas. So, who is this deity from the sea with physical traits alien to the indigenous South American populations? This is another mystery that is difficult to solve, but a clue might come from an enigmatic inscription. In the 1960s, a vase was found on a plot of land near Lake Titicaca, bearing cryptic inscriptions. For many years, these inscriptions remained undeciphered until American epigrapher Clyde Ahmed Winters recognized the characters as Proto-Sumerian.
This oracle is for those who seek to attain purity and strengthen their character. The divine Namu will impart purity, serenity, and fortitude. Use this talisman to cultivate wisdom and serenity within yourself.
According to Sumerian mythology, Namu is the Sumerian goddess of creation. In the Babylonian creation myth Enuma Elish, based on an earlier Sumerian myth, Namu is the primordial sea goddess who gave birth to the heavens, the earth, and the first gods. But how is it possible to find Proto-Sumerian inscriptions on an artifact discovered near Lake Titicaca, about 3,800 meters above sea level and thousands of kilometers from the geographical area where the Sumerians lived and thrived? According to official historical reconstructions, this is absolutely impossible. However, if we consider it possible, we must accept that 3,000 years ago, the people of Mesopotamia had contact with civilizations flourishing on the other side of the world, and vice versa. Did these civilizations have means and resources far superior to what we have imagined so far? Returning to Tiahuanaco, we find another curious fact. On the temple walls, there are a series of carved human heads. The curious and somewhat inexplicable aspect is that these faces seem to possess various facial features. It is as if all the ethnicities of the earth are represented on that wall. This is quite intriguing because, as we said, South American populations at that time had not come into contact with other populations. As we continue to observe the series of heads, the surprises don't end. There is one head that is particularly striking. It seems to have features that do not match any people on Earth, but resemble modern depictions of an alien. According to the Incas, who, as we remember, were not the builders of these structures but admitted to having inherited them, these places were not inhabited by a previous civilization. Instead, they believed Tiahuanaco was where the Inca god Viracocha created the first humans who then populated the earth. Linking tradition with what we can observe today, we can't help but wonder if the myth of Viracocha could be rooted in something that actually happened in the distant past. But this remains a question we cannot answer. Observing Puma Punku, we notice another curious fact mentioned at the beginning of the video. The site appears devastated, with large megaliths scattered across the plateau. This raises another question. What happened to this ancient civilization? Firstly, the devastation at Puma Punku is much greater than that at the rest of Tiahuanaco, suggesting that Puma Punku is at least older than the rest of the site. Some researchers have hypothesized that Puma Punku was destroyed by a violent earthquake, which could be plausible given the seismic activity in the area. However, upon closer examination of the site's remains, this hypothesis seems less convincing. The megaliths scattered across the plateau appear to have been subjected to explosive devastation, rather than an earthquake. Something powerful enough to hurl the megaliths to the ground and scatter them across the plateau seems incompatible with even a very strong earthquake. So, what could have caused such destruction at Puma Punku? We do not have a definitive answer, but once again, if we look to mythology, we might find a clue. The Incas believed that a great flood, known as Unu Pachacuti, meaning cataclysm of water, occurred in the past. This mythical event was considered a purification of the world by the gods, particularly by Viracocha. After the destruction, Viracocha is said to have recreated the world, giving rise to humanity and establishing the order of the cosmos. As we know, this story is not unique to Inca mythology. It appears in various forms in Sumerian, Egyptian, and many other ancient cultures around the world. An ancient story seems to link the civilizations of the past. To say that these accounts are not supported by evidence is incorrect. Puma Punku, along with many other places in the world, if not the definitive proof, is at least part of a series of clues that all point in a specific direction. Clearly, all this should be taken with a grain of skepticism, but ignoring the path indicated by these clues is, in our view. Now we are curious to hear your opinions. Write in the comments what you think, and if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel to support our work. See you in the next story.